Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the enemy fleet fill the space around Earth. The alien ships looked like giant metal insects with glowing blue lights running along their dark hulls. There were so many of them that they blocked out the stars. Jake had been fighting in space for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like this before. The Corvani Empire had been moving across the galaxy for 300 years and destroying every world they found. They had weapons that could crack planets in half and shields that nothing could break through. Every human colony outside Earth had already fallen to their attacks. Now they had come for the last human world. Admiral Lisa Harper spoke through the radio from Earth Defense Command. Her voice was calm, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. She told all the human ships that this was their final battle. The colonies at Alpha Centauri and Wolf 359 had gone silent 3 days ago. Earth was alone now, and if they lost this fight, then humanity would be wiped out forever. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Blake worked at his station and counted the enemy ships. He looked up at Jake with wide eyes and said they were facing 50 alien ships for every one human vessel. The numbers were impossible, but Jake remembered something his grandfather had told him about the old wars on Earth. Sometimes impossible odds made people fight harder instead of giving up. The Corvani had sent a message to Earth 3 weeks ago. They said humans could surrender and work as slaves, or they could fight and die. Most of the Earth leaders wanted to surrender, but the military commanders refused. They said humans would rather die free than live as slaves. Jake agreed with them completely. The alien fleet began moving toward Earth, and Jake ordered his ship to attack. The Liberty's Edge was not the biggest human ship, but it was fast and well-armed. Around him, dozens of other human vessels charged forward to meet the enemy. They all knew they were probably going to die, but none of them turned back. The first alien fighters came screaming through space like angry wasps. They moved faster than anything humans had ever built, and their weapons could cut through steel like paper. But the human pilots were ready for them. They used tricks and tactics that the aliens had never seen before because humans fought differently than other species. Captain Ben Rogers flew his fighter in crazy patterns that should have been impossible. He spun and rolled and dove in ways that made the aliens miss their shots. When they tried to follow him, he led them into the fire from human ships. Lieutenant Amy Clark used her fighter like a missile and rammed it into an alien cruiser at full speed. The explosion took out 3 more enemy ships. Jake watched his people fight with everything they had. The human ships were smaller and weaker than the alien vessels, but they moved like angry hornets. They attacked from unexpected directions and used the debris from destroyed ships as cover. When their weapons ran out of power, they rammed the enemy ships or used their engines as bombs. The battle went on for 3 days without stopping. Human ships fell one by one, but they made the aliens pay for every victory. Each time, an alien ship exploded. The human crews cheered over the radio. They were losing, but they were making it cost the enemy more than they had expected. Dr. Nathan Phillips worked in the defense labs on Earth and watched the battle through telescopes. He saw things that amazed him. Human pilots were using their ships in ways no one had ever tried before. They were learning and adapting faster than the aliens could respond. Even though they were dying, they were teaching the enemy that humans would not be easy to defeat. On the 3rd day, the human fleet was almost gone. Only a few ships were still fighting around Earth. Jake's ship had taken heavy damage, and half his crew was dead or wounded. But the alien fleet had also paid a terrible price. They had lost hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers. Their perfect formations were broken and their commanders were confused. The alien leader sent another message to Earth. He said the humans had fought well, but now they must surrender or watch their planet burn. Admiral Harper sent back a simple answer. She told the aliens that humans would never surrender, and if they wanted Earth, they would have to take it from their dead hands. But something strange happened then. Instead of attacking Earth, the alien fleet pulled back. They had expected an easy victory and instead found an enemy that would rather die than quit. The aliens had conquered 1,000 worlds, But they had never faced anything like human determination before. They needed time to think about what to do next. Jake looked out at the retreating alien ships and smiled. Earth was still free, and humanity was still alive. They had lost the battle, but they had won something more important. They had shown the galaxy that humans would never give up, no matter how bad things looked. The real war was just beginning. 6 months after the space battle, Earth was a different world. The Corvani had come back with more ships, and this time they had landed on the planet. Their tall black towers rose from every major city like giant spears pointing at the sky. Alien. Soldiers walked the streets and their flying machines patrolled the skies day and night. But deep under the ruins of Chicago, something was stirring. Maria Santos crawled through a tunnel that had once been part of the subway system. She carried a bag of explosives and a radio that let her talk to other resistance fighters around the world. The aliens controlled the surface, but the underground belonged to humanity. Maria had been a marine engineer before the invasion. She knew how to build things and how to blow them up. When the aliens landed, she had gathered other soldiers and civilians who refused to surrender. They had spent months digging tunnels and hiding weapons. Now they were ready to fight back. Her radio crackled, and Kevin Wright's voice came through. He was her second in command and one of the bravest men she had ever known. He reported that their scouts had found an alien supply convoy moving through the old downtown area. The convoy was carrying food and ammunition to the alien garrison. It would be a perfect target for their first major attack. Maria smiled in the darkness. The aliens thought they had won, but they did not understand humans at all. They came from a culture where armies fought armies in open battle. They had never faced an enemy that struck from shadows and disappeared before they could strike back. That was about to change. All around the world, other resistance groups were preparing similar attacks. In London, Daniel Clark had been teaching ordinary people how to make bombs from alien technology. He was a former soldier who knew how to turn everyday items into deadly weapons. The aliens had superior technology, but humans were learning to use it against them. In the mountains of Colorado, Amy Johnson led a group of survivors who had turned the Rocky Mountains into a fortress. She had been a park ranger before the war and knew every cave and trail in the region. The aliens sent patrols to hunt for her people, but they always came back empty-handed, or they did not come back at all. Dr. Nathan Phillips worked in a hidden laboratory beneath the Chicago resistance base. He had been studying captured alien equipment for months and had made an important discovery. The alien weapons and communication devices all used something called quantum entanglement. This made them very powerful, but it also made them vulnerable to the right kind of interference. Nathan explained to Maria that if they could build a device that created the right electromagnetic frequency, they could disrupt the alien equipment. Their weapons would stop working, and their communication would fail. It would give the resistance fighters a huge advantage in battle. Maria listened carefully, and then asked Nathan how long it would take to build such a device. He said he needed more alien equipment to study and at least 2 weeks to build a working prototype. She told him he would have everything he needed. The convoy attack would give them plenty of alien technology to work with. The attack began at midnight when the alien convoy entered the tunnel system beneath downtown Chicago. The aliens had thought the tunnels were empty, but resistance fighters had been waiting there for hours. They had placed explosives at key points and hidden gunmen in side passages. Kevin Wright triggered the first explosion just as the lead alien vehicle entered the kill zone. The blast brought down part of the tunnel ceiling and trapped the convoy between walls of rubble. Then, Maria's fighters opened fire from a dozen different positions at once. The aliens were tough and well-armed, but they had never fought in tight underground spaces before. Their heavy weapons were useless in the narrow tunnels and their flying machines could not reach them. The resistance fighters used hit-and-run tactics that the aliens could not counter. Lieutenant Tony Martinez led a team that captured 3 alien vehicles intact. The aliens inside had been killed, but their equipment was undamaged. This was exactly what Dr. Phillips needed for his research. Other teams grabbed weapons and communication devices before disappearing back into the tunnel system. The battle lasted 2 hours, and when it was over, the alien convoy was completely destroyed. 30 alien soldiers were dead, and all their supplies had been captured or destroyed. The Resistance had lost only 4 fighters. It was a stunning victory that proved humans could fight back effectively. News of the Chicago attack spread through the Resistance network within hours. Similar attacks began happening all over the world as other groups followed Maria's example. The aliens found their supply lines under constant attack and their patrols being ambushed daily. The Corvani commanders were confused and angry. They had expected to rule Earth easily, but instead they found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see or predict. Every time they sent forces to crush a resistance cell, they found only empty tunnels and abandoned hiding places. Maria sat in her underground command center and read reports from resistance groups on every continent. The humans were learning to fight like ghosts, and the aliens were slowly realizing that conquering Earth was going to be much harder than they had thought. The real war was just beginning, and humanity was teaching the galaxy what determination looked like. 2 years had passed since the aliens first landed on Earth, and the Resistance had grown into something no one had expected. Commander Alex Turner sat in his hidden base in the Australian desert and coordinated attacks with Resistance fighters on 6 different continents. The aliens controlled the cities, but humans owned the shadows. The breakthrough had come when Dr. Sandra Mitchell figured out how to reverse engineer the alien communication systems. She had been a NASA engineer before the war and understood complex technology better than most people. Working with a team of brilliant scientists hiding in underground laboratories, she had built a communication network that used the same frequencies as the aliens. This meant the Resistance could talk to each other without the aliens knowing about it. Messages could be sent instantly from Australia to Europe to North America. The alien technology that had been used to conquer worlds was now being used to coordinate the fight against them. In the frozen wilderness of Siberia, Viktor Petrov ran a training camp where Resistance fighters learned advanced combat techniques. He had been a special forces soldier in the Russian military and knew more about guerrilla warfare than almost anyone alive. His students came from all over the world to learn how to fight aliens effectively. Victor taught them that aliens were not gods or monsters. They were just soldiers with better equipment. They made mistakes and they had weaknesses that could be exploited. Most importantly, they did not understand human psychology or tactics. This gave the Resistance fighters a huge advantage if they used it correctly. The students learned how to move silently through alien patrols and how to set traps that would cripple alien vehicles. They practiced attacking from multiple directions at once and disappearing before the aliens could respond. When they finished their training, they returned to their home regions and taught others what they had learned. The Resistance network was tested when the aliens decided to make an example of a human city. They chose Denver and announced that it would be completely destroyed as punishment for Resistance activities. Every human in the city would die unless the Resistance surrendered immediately. Colonel Steve Carter coordinated the response from his base in the Rocky Mountains. He had been an Army officer before the war and understood large-scale operations. The message went out through the Resistance network to every cell on Earth. Operation Exodus would begin immediately. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. Resistance fighters would evacuate every civilian from Denver through a network of underground tunnels while simultaneously launching coordinated attacks on alien facilities worldwide. The attacks would distract the aliens and buy time for the evacuation. Maria Santos led the evacuation efforts in the tunnel systems beneath Denver. Her teams had spent months preparing escape routes and supply caches. Now they had to move 500,000 people through narrow underground passages before the aliens attacked the city. The evacuation began at dawn and continued for 18 hours without stopping. Families moved through the tunnels carrying only what they could fit in backpacks. Children were carried by volunteers when they became too tired to walk. Medical teams treated the injured and elderly who could not keep up with the pace. Meanwhile, resistance cells around the world launched their coordinated attacks. In Tokyo, fighters destroyed an alien communications center. In London, they sabotaged a major supply depot. In Sao Paulo, they ambushed an alien patrol and captured their vehicles. Every attack was perfectly timed to create maximum confusion. Dr. Nathan Phillips monitored alien communications from his laboratory and reported that their coordination was breaking down. The simultaneous attacks had overwhelmed their command structure, and they were having trouble responding effectively. The plan was working exactly as intended, but the aliens were not completely helpless. When they realized what was happening, they moved quickly to destroy Denver before all the civilians could escape. Their ships appeared over the city and began charging their weapons. The resistance had saved most of the people, but thousands were still underground. Alex Turner made a desperate decision. He ordered every resistance cell to reveal their positions and attack the aliens directly. This would expose the resistance network, but it might save the remaining civilians in Denver. Fighters emerged from hiding places all over the world and engaged alien forces in open combat. The battle was fierce and costly. Resistance fighters with captured alien weapons fought alien soldiers in the streets of a dozen cities. Many humans died, but their sacrifice gave the last civilians time to escape from Denver through the tunnel network. When the alien weapons finally fired, Denver was almost empty. The city burned and its buildings collapsed, but most of its people were safe in the underground shelters. The resistance had saved hundreds of thousands of lives while dealing devastating blows to alien forces worldwide. The alien commanders were furious and confused. They had tried to terrorize humanity into submission, but instead had unified the resistance even more. The images of burning Denver were broadcast through the resistance network and made every human fighter more determined to continue the war. Intercepted alien communications revealed something important. The alien high command was beginning to question whether occupying Earth was worth the cost. They were losing soldiers and equipment at an alarming rate while gaining very little in return. Some alien leaders were suggesting that humanity might be more trouble than it was worth. Alex Turner read these reports with satisfaction. The resistance was not just fighting for survival anymore. They were making the aliens pay such a high price for occupying Earth that the aliens were starting to doubt their own victory. The war was far from over, but for the first time humans could see a path to freedom. 5 years of fighting had changed humanity in ways no one could have predicted. General Patricia Ross commanded the unified global resistance from a mobile command center that moved constantly to avoid alien detection. She had been a colonel when the war started, but the old military rank seemed less important now. What mattered was that every human on Earth looked to her for leadership. The intelligence report she held in her hands would change everything. Captain Chris Anderson had led a raid on an alien command center in the ruins of New York and captured detailed information about the Corvani Empire. The aliens were in serious trouble, and it had nothing to do with the resistance on Earth. The Zelkan Republic had been enemies of the Corvani for thousands of years. While the Corvani were busy fighting humans, the Zelkans had launched their own massive attack on the alien empire. Hundreds of Corvani worlds were under assault, and the empire was fighting for its survival on multiple fronts. Even more importantly, other conquered species had seen what humans were doing and started their own rebellions. The Corvani had ruled through fear for centuries, but humanity had shown the galaxy that the aliens could be defeated. Rebellions were breaking out on dozens of worlds as other species followed the human example. Patricia smiled as she read the reports. The Corvani Empire was being torn apart by wars it could not win. Most of their fleet was desperately trying to defend their core worlds from the Zelkan offensive. The forces occupying Earth were now isolated and receiving very little support from their home government. Dr. Emma Rodriguez brought even better news from her research laboratory. Working with an international team of scientists, she had finally cracked the secret of Corvani shield technology. For the first time since the invasion, humans could build vehicles and installations that could stand up to alien weapons. The breakthrough had come from studying captured alien equipment and combining it with human engineering principles. The new shields were not as powerful as the alien versions, but they were good enough to give human forces a fighting chance in direct combat. The age of hiding in tunnels and fighting from shadows was coming to an end. Patricia decided it was time for humanity to go on the offensive. She activated the resistance network and began coordinating the largest operation in human history. Operation Prometheus would be a simultaneous attack on every major alien installation on Earth. This time, humans would fight with captured alien vehicles and their own newly developed shield technology. The operation began at midnight Greenwich, time when resistance cells on every continent struck at once. In Geneva, Tony Martinez led the assault on the primary Corvani command facility. His fighters moved through the streets in captured alien vehicles, while human-built aircraft provided air support. The aliens were completely surprised by the scale and coordination of the attack. They had grown used to fighting small groups of resistance fighters with primitive weapons. Now they faced organized military units equipped with advanced technology and fighting with the skill that came from 5 years of constant warfare. Maria Santos had been promoted to colonel and now commanded the North American assault forces. Her troops attacked alien positions in Chicago, while coordinated strikes hit targets in Los Angeles and Miami. The aliens tried to respond, but their communication systems were jammed and their reinforcements were under attack everywhere. The Battle of Geneva became the symbol of humanity's new capabilities. Tony Martinez's forces broke through alien defenses that had been considered impossible to breach. For the first time since the invasion, humans were fighting aliens on equal terms and winning. The psychological impact was enormous for both sides. Dr. Nathan Phillips monitored alien communications and reported that their commanders were in complete panic. They had not received reinforcements in months, and now they were facing a coordinated assault by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive, guerrillas. Many alien units were requesting permission to retreat to their orbital stations. The fighting continued for 3 days as human forces systematically captured alien installations across the planet. The aliens had superior individual technology, but humans had superior numbers and motivation. More importantly, humans understood their own planet better than any invader ever could. By the end of Operation Prometheus, most alien ground forces had been driven from Earth's surface. The surviving aliens retreated to their orbital platforms and tried to coordinate a counterattack from space. But they no longer had the strength to retake the planet they had occupied for 5 years. Alex Turner coordinated the global intelligence network and reported that alien forces throughout the galaxy were in full retreat. The Zelkin offensive had captured dozens of Corvani worlds, and other species were winning their own wars of liberation. The mighty empire that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years was collapsing. Patricia Ross stood in the captured Alien Command Center in Geneva and looked at the reports flowing in from around the world. Human forces controlled most of Earth's surface, and the aliens were trapped in their orbital stations. The liberation of humanity was within reach. But the war was not over yet. The aliens still had powerful ships in orbit, and they might decide to destroy Earth rather than let it go free. Patricia knew that the final battle would be fought in space, and humans would need to reach beyond their planet to claim true victory. She activated the emergency protocol that few people knew existed. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, human engineers had been building something that would surprise the aliens one more time. The secret weapon that would win the war was almost ready for its first flight. Humanity was about to take the fight to space. The massive doors beneath the Pacific Ocean opened for the first time in 5 years, and the UES Defiance rose toward the surface. Admiral Marcus Thompson stood on the bridge of humanity's first starship and felt the weight of the entire species on his shoulders. Everything humans had learned during 5 years of war had gone into building this vessel. The ship looked like no alien vessel ever built. Its hull combined human engineering with captured Corvani technology, but the design was purely human. Where alien ships were smooth and graceful, the Defiance was angular and aggressive. It had been built for one purpose, which was to fight and win against impossible odds. Commander Rachel Ward worked at the tactical station and coordinated with resistance forces on the surface. Ground-based missile batteries were ready to support the space battle, while fighter squadrons prepared to launch from hidden bases. This would be the first time humans fought aliens in space since the initial invasion. The Corvani orbital platforms detected the Defiance as soon as it broke the ocean surface. Alarm signals flashed through the alien fleet as they realized that humans had somehow built a starship in secret. The aliens had been watching Earth's industrial centers, but they had never thought to look beneath the oceans. Captain Laura Hayes led the first squadron of human-built fighters into space. The small craft had been constructed in underground factories using a combination of human innovation and alien technology. They were faster and more maneuverable than anything the aliens had seen before because humans built them to fight the way humans liked to fight. The space battle began when the Corvani flagship opened fire on the Defiance with its main weapons. The human ship's shields flared under the impact, but held firm. 5 years of studying alien technology had taught human engineers how to build defenses that could withstand the enemy's most powerful attacks. Admiral Thompson ordered the Defiance to return fire, and the ship's weapons lit up the darkness of space. The human-built particle cannons were not as advanced as alien weapons, but they were designed with typical human efficiency. They fired faster and hit harder than the aliens expected from a primitive species. The orbital battle raged for 18 hours as human and alien ships fought among the debris of previous battles. The Defiance moved through the enemy formation like an angry shark, while fighter squadrons darted between the larger vessels. Every human pilot knew that the future of their species depended on this fight. Rachel Ward coordinated strikes with the surface missile batteries and watched as human weapons found their targets on alien ships. The Resistance had learned exactly where alien vessels were most vulnerable, and they exploited every weakness they had discovered during 5 years of warfare. Captain Hayes led her fighters in a desperate attack on the Corvani flagship's weapon systems. Her squadron flew straight into the enemy's defensive fire, and 3 fighters were destroyed before they reached their target. But the surviving craft managed to disable the alien ship's main guns and left it vulnerable to attack from the Defiance. The human fighters had one advantage that alien technology could not match. Every pilot was fighting for their home world and their freedom. They took risks that alien pilots would never take and pressed attacks that should have been suicidal. Their desperate courage made up for any technological disadvantages they faced. Dr. Emma Rodriguez monitored the battle from the Defiance's engineering section and made real-time adjustments to the ship's systems. Human technology was still not as advanced as alien equipment, but it was more flexible and adaptable. When alien weapons damaged human systems, the engineers could improvise repairs that got them working again. The turning point came when Admiral Thompson ordered a direct assault on the alien command platform. The Defiance charged straight through the enemy formation, while every alien ship concentrated their fire on the human vessel. The ship's shields failed and armor plating was torn away, but the vessel kept moving toward its target. The Defiance rammed into the alien command platform at full speed, and both vessels were badly damaged in the collision. But human boarding parties led by Tony Martinez fought their way through the alien ship and captured the command center. For the first time in the war, humans had taken control of a major alien installation. The loss of their command platform broke the alien fleet's coordination. Individual ships began retreating toward the edge of the solar system, while others continued fighting without central direction. The organized Corvani defense collapsed into chaos as human forces pressed their advantage. Captain Hayes regrouped her surviving fighters and led them in pursuit of the retreating alien vessels. The human pilots had learned to use hit-and-run tactics in space just as effectively as their ground-based counterparts had used them on Earth. They harassed the alien retreat and prevented any organized counterattack. The final alien message came from war leader Vorthak, who had commanded the occupation force since the beginning. His transmission was broadcast on all frequencies, so every human could hear his words. He said that humanity had earned something no other species had achieved, which was the respect of the Corvani Empire. The alien commander admitted that his people had underestimated human determination and fighting spirit. The Empire was withdrawing from Earth, but the galaxy would remember what had happened here. Other species would learn that even the mightiest empires could be defeated by those who refused to surrender. As the last alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the damaged Defiance and looked down at the blue marble of Earth. The planet was free, and humanity had proven that technological superiority meant nothing when facing a species that simply would not quit fighting. The liberation of Earth sent shockwaves through the galaxy as news of humanity's victory spread to every inhabited world. Rebellions that had been smoldering for years burst into open warfare as other species followed the human example. The Corvani Empire was crumbling, and the age of human influence in galactic affairs was about to begin. 10 years after the liberation of Earth, Ambassador Sarah Williams walked into the great assembly hall of the Galactic Council and felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Representatives from dozens of species filled the chamber, and all of them looked to humanity for leadership. The galaxy had been transformed by what humans had done, and now they wanted to learn from the species that had defeated the mighty Corvani Empire. Sarah represented not just humanity, but the Free Worlds Alliance, which included every species that had thrown off Corvani rule following Earth's example. The alliance included the proud Zelkan Republic, who had been humanity's unexpected allies in the final war. It also included dozens of smaller species who had found the courage to fight for their freedom after seeing what humans had accomplished. The former Corvani Empire was a shadow of its former self. The core worlds had formed smaller democratic republics while the outer colonies had declared independence. Many former Corvani territories were still learning how to govern themselves after centuries of imperial rule. Some were struggling, but all of them were free to make their own choices. President John Harrison addressed the United Earth Assembly from the rebuilt city of Geneva, where the first successful resistance against alien occupation had begun. He outlined humanity's new role in galactic affairs, which was to serve as a beacon of hope for any species fighting oppression. Earth would never again stand alone against tyranny. The Sol system had become a symbol throughout the galaxy. Pilgrims from dozens of worlds came to visit the planet where a small species had stood against an empire and won. They walked through the tunnels where the resistance had hidden and visited the memorials to those who had died fighting for freedom. Dr. Catherine Moore led the Galactic Research Consortium, which shared scientific knowledge between all member species of the Free Worlds Alliance. Human innovation combined with alien technology had led to breakthroughs in medicine and energy production that benefited everyone. The spirit of cooperation that had grown from shared struggle was creating a renaissance of learning. The most important change was not technological, but philosophical. The galaxy had learned that freedom was possible no matter how powerful the oppressor appeared to be. Species that had lived under tyranny for thousands of years were discovering what it meant to govern themselves and make their own choices about their future. Commander Jake Morrison was now an old man, but he still served as an advisor to the Earth Defense Forces. He remembered the desperate space battle that had started everything and marveled at how much had changed. Human ships now patrolled the trade routes and protected smaller species from pirates and warlords. The hunters had become the guardians. Maria, Santos had become the first director of the Galactic Liberation Corps, which trained resistance fighters from oppressed worlds. Her underground tunnels in Chicago had become a training ground where species from across the galaxy learned the tactics that had freed Earth. The lessons of human determination were being spread to every corner of known space. The memorial ceremony took place at the Liberation Wall in Earth's capital city. The names of every human who had died during the occupation and resistance were carved into black stone that gleamed in the sunlight. Children from dozens of different species listened as the names were read aloud by veterans of the war. Jake Morrison read the names of his fallen comrades, while representatives from the Free Worlds Alliance stood in respectful silence. The alien. Children in the audience were learning about the price of freedom and the courage it took to stand against overwhelming odds. They would carry these lessons back to their own worlds. The inscription on the memorial captured the essence of what humanity had achieved during those dark years. It said that here had stood a species that refused to kneel before any master. Their resolve had outlasted empires, and their spirit had liberated worlds. Their example had changed the galaxy forever. Admiral Thompson now commanded the Free Worlds fleet, which included ships from every member species. The fleet's mission was to protect the weak and ensure that no empire could ever again dominate the galaxy through force. The principles that had guided the human resistance were now the foundation of galactic law. The ceremony ended with ships from across the galaxy departing Earth's orbit. Each vessel carried with it the knowledge that freedom was possible, and that ordinary people could achieve extraordinary things when they refused to give up. The message of human determination was spreading to every inhabited world. Sarah Williams watched the ships disappear into hyperspace and thought about how much had changed since the dark days of occupation. The Corvani Empire had ruled for 3,000 years before encountering humanity. It had fallen within 15 years of occupying Earth. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth about the power of the human spirit. The stars now belonged to the free peoples of the galaxy, and no empire would ever again be able to crush the dreams of those who yearned for liberty. Humanity had given the galaxy something more valuable than any technology or weapon. They had given it hope and the knowledge that even the smallest species could change the course of history. The age of empires was ending, and the age of freedom was beginning. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in darkness for millennia were stepping into the light of self-determination. The human example would inspire countless generations to come and ensure that the spirit of resistance would never die among the stars.